Rain slapped the windshield in angry streaks as the wipers fought a losing battle. Inside the cozy glow of the lighthouse diner, Liam froze mid-bite, his fork clinking against the plate. Across the table, his father, Ethan, looked up, only to see his son staring, wide-eyed, at the waitress pouring their coffee. "Dad," Liam whispered, voice barely audible over the soft hum of jazz and thunder outside. "She has the same birthmark, the one from Mom's shoulder in that beach photo." Ethan turned slowly. The waitress, tall, graceful, her ponytail dripping from a rush outside, reached for a napkin. As her sleeve slid back, a familiar crescent-shaped birthmark peeked through. His heart stopped. The woman glanced up. Their eyes locked. Something flickered. Recognition. Fear. Grief. Before Ethan could speak, a young girl ran from behind the counter, hugging the waitress tightly. "Mommy, I lost my necklace." The woman knelt, holding the child close. But Ethan wasn't watching the girl. He was staring at the woman's face. His wife's face. Or was it? The moment shattered everything. Ethan Brooks sat frozen in the diner booth, fingers still curled around his coffee cup, now lukewarm and forgotten. Across from him, Liam kept glancing back at the waitress, his breath shallow, like he was afraid even breathing too loudly might change what they had just seen. The woman, her name tag read Ava, was back behind the counter, calmly wiping down a tray as if nothing had happened, but Ethan's heart was pounding loud enough to drown out the storm still raging outside. He knew that mark. That crescent on her forearm, shaped like the edge of a moon that had once rested against his wife's bare skin on warm summer nights. He had traced it 100 times with his fingertips, in love and disbelief that someone like her had ever been real. And now here it was, walking, moving, existing 10 feet away, on a woman with eyes like glass and a voice he hadn't yet heard. Liam leaned in, his voice a quiet dart. "Are you going to ask her?" Ethan didn't answer. How could he? What would he even say? "Hi, I think you're my dead wife." Instead, he did what he always did, folded the emotion into a tighter knot and let the silence sit. But fate wasn't done. A bell above the kitchen door jingled again, and this time, Ethan nearly knocked his drink over. Another woman, identical in every way except the fire in her eyes, stepped out holding 2 pies. Her voice cracked through the diner like lightning across black water. "Table 5 still needs their check. Ava, I got the rest." Ava nodded and disappeared into the back, like vapor, like a ghost vanishing before you could grab its wrist. Ethan sat back. There were 2. Twin sisters. Of course. Of course. His mind raced, trying to backpedal from the cliff he'd nearly fallen off. He hadn't seen a ghost. Just a face that resembled the past, nothing more. But then the child reappeared. Small, quiet, clutching a ragged notebook and whispering to the bolder sister, Eliza, based on the name tag. The girl's dark curls were pulled back loosely, her feet barely touching the tiles as she followed Eliza to the register. Ethan's world tilted again. The girl wore a necklace. Not just any necklace. That necklace. Silver, with an ocean blue teardrop pendant that Catherine had worn the day she vanished. He pushed away from the table so quickly the legs screeched. Liam startled, knocking over his soda. "Dad," but Ethan was already on his feet, his blood roaring in his ears. He crossed the diner in 3 long strides, slowing only as he neared the counter. Eliza turned, eyes sharpening like a blade. "Can I help you?" she asked, polite but wary. Ethan looked down at the child, who was now peeking shyly from behind Eliza's apron. "That necklace," he said slowly, carefully, like each word weighed 100 pounds. "Where did you get it?" The girl blinked, then smiled. "It's Mommy's. She says it's magic." Ethan's throat dried. "Your mom gave that to you?" She nodded. "She said Daddy gave it to her a long time ago, before the storm." Time fractured. The words hung in the air like smoke. Before the storm. That's what they used to call it. The night Catherine vanished, the boat shattered, the search that found nothing. Not even debris. Eliza's jaw clenched. She stepped protectively in front of the child. "Sir, I think you've mistaken us for someone else." Ethan's eyes narrowed. Did she survive it? Eliza froze. "You need to leave." Liam had come up behind his father now, glancing between the adults like someone caught in the middle of a war he didn't start. Ethan softened. "Please. I just need to know. I lost my wife 10 years ago. She wore that necklace the night she disappeared." For a moment, Eliza's mask cracked. Grief. Panic. And something close to guilt flickered across her face. But then it was gone. Ava doesn't remember anything before she came here. She was found in the bay, barely breathing. My mom took her in. We didn't ask questions. Maybe you shouldn't either. And with that, she turned, ushered the girl away, and disappeared behind the swinging kitchen doors. Ethan stood there, shell-shocked. Liam touched his arm gently. "Dad, what if she's not just someone who looks like Mom?" Ethan couldn't move. Couldn't speak. The neon lights above buzzed louder. Rain slammed against the windows in waves. And deep inside his chest, something fragile cracked open. He had buried hope for so long, it almost hurt to feel it again. But now it was awake. And it would not be ignored. 10 years ago, Ethan Brooks stood barefoot on the cold deck of the Brooks Venture 3, his wife's laughter still echoing somewhere beneath the wind. Catherine had always loved the sea. Even after the IPO, after the speaking tours and luxury boardrooms, she still said the ocean made her feel like herself again. That night, as the fog thickened around them like gauze, she stood at the bow in a blue raincoat, arms stretched wide, calling out to the darkness like it would answer back. He'd never told her he was going to sell the boat after this trip. He couldn't bear to touch it again without her. Not after what happened. The next morning, only his wedding ring and a blood-smeared railing remained. They said it was an accident. That the storm came in faster than the radar caught. That she slipped, that the waves were merciless. But no one ever found the body. No dive team. No Coast Guard. Just that eerie silence from the sea. The insurance company ruled it closed, the press moved on, and Marcus Langston, Ethan's then business partner, told him to let it go. Grieve, Marcus had said, with hands that never shook and eyes that never blinked. Start over, Ethan. It's what she would have wanted. But even then, something in Ethan had twisted. Catherine didn't fear the ocean. She respected it. And the timelines, those never quite added up. How Marcus was already at the shore when the distress call hadn't even gone through. How Catherine's satchel, the one she never took off, was mysteriously found in Marcus's car a week later, written off as coincidence. Ethan sold everything. The company. The yacht. The penthouse in Queen Anne. He took Liam and left Seattle for the slow anonymity of smaller towns, offering restaurant turnarounds to stay afloat. Liam was only 5 then, too young to understand, but old enough to hold his father's hand at the funeral they held without a body. Even now, the boy remembered the look in his father's eyes that day, not grief, but unfinished business. Years passed like rain against windows. Distant, blurred. Ethan grew quieter, more deliberate. He read too much, slept too little. But he never stopped checking local news from coastal towns. Never stopped scanning photos of strangers in diners, in church directories, in real estate listings. Somewhere deep down, he believed the ocean had not taken her, it had hidden her. And now, standing in Port Belle, staring at the birthmark on a waitress's wrist and the necklace on a little girl, the past surged up like a tide. But this wasn't just about memory or coincidence. In the weeks before the accident, Catherine had been different. She was secretive. Restless. She would leave the house late, whispering into her phone. She had begun asking Ethan strange questions, about shell companies, about Marcus, about untraceable investments. He thought she was being paranoid. But then one night she told him, with a look she never used lightly, "If something happens to me, promise me you'll look at the people closest to us first." At the time, he had laughed it off. But now, years later, in a sleepy diner where time moved like syrup and silence felt sacred, those words echoed like thunder. Could it be that she had uncovered something? That she'd known Marcus was laundering funds through their startup's acquisition deals? That she had confronted him, and he made sure her voice was lost in the waves? Liam had always sensed there was more. He asked about her in quiet moments, when the sky turned violet at dusk or when they passed the marina. Once, Ethan had caught him in the attic, holding Catherine's old journals, dog-eared and underlined. "She used to draw maps," Liam whispered. "And timelines. Like she was solving a puzzle." Ethan couldn't bring himself to read them then. It hurt too much. But maybe Liam had been right all along. Now, this town, Port Belle, felt too coincidental. The fog, the ocean, the women with mirrored faces, the girl with her mother's eyes. Ethan and Liam had only stopped here because of a mechanical issue with the car. But maybe that wasn't chance at all. Maybe Catherine had been calling to them all along, in the currents, in the wind, in the space between forgetting and being found. And then there was that man. A shadowy figure near the dock earlier that day. Ethan had seen him talking to Eliza behind the cafe, his profile too familiar. Broad-shouldered, expensive watch flashing under the gray sky. When the man noticed Ethan watching, he ducked into a black Escalade and drove off with plates covered in mud. For a moment, Ethan thought he was seeing things. But something in his gut twisted like wire. Marcus. He hadn't heard from his old partner in over 7 years, not since Ethan withdrew his final shares and walked away from the company they'd built together. But if Marcus was here, if he had found them first, it meant the past wasn't done unraveling. It meant Catherine had survived something far more sinister than a storm. Ethan stood that night on the motel balcony, the sea moaning in the distance, rain soaking through his shirt as Liam sat silently behind him, pretending to scroll his phone. The boy didn't ask again. He didn't have to. Because they both knew this wasn't over. The birthmark. The necklace. The missing decade. And now a child whose eyes held answers Ethan wasn't sure he was ready to hear. And just before he turned to go back inside, Ethan swore he heard something, soft and distant. A melody. Hummed low and familiar. The lullaby Catherine used to sing when Liam was small, the one no one else knew. And it was coming from the window of the diner, where one twin waitress sat in the dark, rocking a child who called her mommy. The next morning, the diner felt different. Something beneath the cozy hum of clinking dishes and murmured orders had shifted. Ethan noticed it in the way Eliza avoided his eyes, the way Ava's hands trembled slightly as she poured coffee, the way Nora, that quiet little girl, kept peeking at him from behind the jukebox like she already knew who he was. Liam picked up on it, too. "Dad," he whispered over pancakes, "why does that waitress have the same scar Mom did on her wrist?" Ethan's fork froze mid-air. He hadn't noticed the scar, only the birthmark. A crescent-shaped mark just beneath Ava's left ear, identical to Catherine's. But a scar, too. Something deep inside him bristled, like a string being pulled too tight. "Are you sure?" Liam nodded. "She dropped her notepad earlier. I saw it when she picked it up." Ethan excused himself to the restroom but instead slipped behind the cafe to the back alley, where the morning mist hadn't yet burned off. He waited. Watched. And then saw Eliza step outside, alone, lighting a cigarette with a flick of irritation. "You've been watching us," she said before he could speak. Her voice was cool, defensive. "You and your kid." Ethan kept his voice low. "Do you know Catherine Brooks?" Eliza flinched, but barely. "Can't say I do." "You have her face," he said. Your sister has her birthmark. And that little girl? She has my wife's eyes. Silence. A truck groaned by in the distance. Then Eliza turned and faced him, cigarette forgotten. I don't know who you think we are, she said. But you're scaring my sister. And Nora doesn't need that. He stepped closer. Did you know Catherine was pregnant when she disappeared? Eliza's eyes widened, then narrowed fast. Get out of Port Belle, she snapped. Now. Before someone makes you. And just like that, she vanished back inside. That night, Ethan waited. He sat in the parked car outside the diner until the last light went off. Until Ava stepped out, jacket pulled tight, clutching a small floral tin in her hands. He followed her, not out of threat, but desperation. She walked through the winding paths of the coastal neighborhood until she reached a weather-worn cottage near the cliffs. He stayed back, hidden behind the hedge, watching her enter. A few minutes later, a second figure emerged onto the porch, Eliza. She hadn't come from inside. She'd been waiting. Watching the trail behind her sister. And watching Ethan. The next morning, Liam confronted him. You think one of them is Mom? It wasn't a question. Maybe both know more than they say, Ethan admitted. And that girl, Nora, she might be your sister. Then why won't they tell us? Ethan looked at him, and for once, told the truth. Because maybe someone's still trying to keep it buried. Later that day, Ethan returned to the cottage, but this time, Martha was there. Not an old friend, not a relative. Just the landlady who had rented the place to two sisters from out of town about 9 years ago. He asked for paperwork, for anything, but she hesitated. They've been good tenants, she said. Quiet. Paid on time. The one with the birthmark, Ava, she came here after some head trauma. Said she couldn't remember much before the sea. There it was. Amnesia. Ethan's heart thudded. Did she ever mention Seattle? Martha shook her head. But her daughter calls the cliffs the remembering place. Kids say strange things, but maybe you should talk to Nora. He didn't get the chance. That night, someone broke into the motel room. Not to rob, but to erase. Liam's laptop, gone. Catherine's journals, vanished from Ethan's bag. But whoever did it left behind a single item, a photo. An old company retreat, years ago. Marcus, Ethan, and Catherine standing beside a yacht. On the back, she knew. I told you she'd never stay quiet. The handwriting wasn't Catherine's. He called Marcus. No answer. Called again. Voicemail. The third time, a different voice answered. Mr. Brooks, said a gravelly tone. You should enjoy your vacation. Stop digging. The dead don't come back. Click. The next morning, Nora was missing. Panic spread through the town like smoke. Ava collapsed in the diner, sobbing, and for the first time, Eliza showed Ethan her full fear. She said a man came to talk to her at the playground. Eliza choked out. Tall. Gray coat. Said he was a friend of her father's. Ethan knew. Marcus. Liam found her first, curled behind the statue at the cliffs, clutching her necklace and whispering a song only Catherine used to hum. When Ethan knelt down, she looked into his eyes and said, You were in Mommy's dream. Back at the cottage, Eliza broke. Her real name's Catherine. We didn't know until 2 years ago, when she started having flashbacks. Bits and pieces. A yacht. A man screaming. A gun. My sister washed up 10 years ago, half dead. She didn't remember who she was. I protected her. I raised her daughter as my niece. And then you show up and now everything's falling apart. Ethan reached for his phone. We need a DNA test. Eliza stared at him. You'll bring him back. Marcus. He knows she's alive now. He already knows, Ethan whispered. And he's coming. A storm was rolling in, on the horizon, and in their lives. But in that moment, soaked in secrets and salt and wind, Ethan reached for Ava's trembling hand and said the name she hadn't remembered in years. "Catherine," he said, voice cracked, "you once told me if anything happened to you, I should look at the people closest to us first." And her hand, for just a moment, tightened around his. The rain hit harder as night fell on Port Belle, as if the ocean itself was trying to wash away everything hidden along its fog-choked cliffs. Ethan stood outside the cottage, soaked through, waiting for the call he hoped wouldn't come. Inside, Ava, no, Catherine, paced with Eliza and Nora in silence, a quiet storm of memory and fear building behind her eyes. Liam sat beside Nora, letting her trace patterns on his palm like his mom once did when he was a baby. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. A flash of headlights cut through the curtain. Ethan moved fast, shielding his son and the girls as a black SUV crept up the gravel path. The passenger door opened, and Marcus Langston stepped out, umbrella in hand, face calm like he hadn't orchestrated a decade of silence and loss. "You look terrible, Ethan," he said. "Still trying to be the hero?" Ethan didn't flinch. "You tried to drown my wife." Marcus sighed. "She wasn't supposed to survive. She had documents, Ethan. Proof. Offshore accounts. Whistleblower testimony. She was going to destroy everything we built." Catherine stepped into the doorway, barefoot, no umbrella, rain soaking her hair like ink. "You already destroyed it, Marcus. You destroyed us." He blinked. For a second, just one, his composure slipped. "Catherine," he breathed. "You're not supposed to be here." "Neither is your soul," she answered. "But here we are." Eliza stepped out beside her, and behind her, Liam. 3 generations of truth standing in the storm. "You gonna kill us all, Marcus?" Eliza spat. "Go ahead. But the cops already have the files. You missed one USB drive. Nora found it in an old puzzle box 2 days ago." Ethan handed over a flash drive in a plastic bag. "Insurance. Just in case you tried to finish what you started." Marcus's face twisted, not in anger, but disbelief. "You really think I'll go down for this?" Sirens wailed in the distance. "I think you already have," Catherine said. As police lights flashed through the fog, Marcus raised his hands, but not before whispering to Ethan, "You should have stayed gone. You don't know the whole story." He was right. The arrest wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Catherine's memory returned in fragments, flashes of blood on white fiberglass, hands dragging her to shore, Eliza weeping on the beach. The real estate empire Marcus ran was built on shell companies Catherine tried to expose. She hadn't just been the whistleblower, she'd been the architect of the software that uncovered it all. She was never just a wife. She was the threat. And Eliza had saved her from it all. In the weeks that followed, the fog in Port Belle began to lift, not just in the air, but in the hearts of those left behind. Nora now knew her father's name. She asked to call him Ethan, not Dad, yet, she said. Liam didn't mind. He shared his comic books with her and taught her how to beat him at chess. Catherine slowly adjusted to her new, old life. Some days were good, some blurry. But every time Ethan made coffee in the morning and saw her reading with Nora in the nook by the window, something inside him healed. Eliza stayed. She worked the diner, watched the sun rise every morning over the ocean, and kept her promise to never let Catherine be alone again. The town forgave slowly, but it did. And one foggy morning, as Catherine walked hand in hand with Nora and Ethan through the market, a local artist called out, "You're the family from the cliffs, huh?" Catherine smiled. "No. We're just passing through." Ethan squeezed her hand. "Together this time." The past didn't vanish. But neither did love. Not after 10 years. Not after storms. And in the quiet hum of Port Belle, under rain-streaked windows and flickering neon, the truth had finally come home.